the May 26th? It just told me it was being recorded.
Okay, it's all right. I got it.
Okay. So if you will, mute yourselves until the question and comment time, or put your questions in the chat, and we'll make sure that we address it as we go. Today I had the invocation being given by Dan Griffin. Is he on the call? Our ace in the hole, Mark Eldridge, is on the call. Would you mind doing a invocation?
Sure, happy to.
Thank you.
Let us pray. Father, again, we thank you for another time to gather as Rotarians to fellowship, to grow in serving others above self. And we just invite you into this meeting today to bless it, and those who will be sharing today about their lives and how they got to where they are. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Mark. That's a gift to be able to do that on the spot like that. Thank you. And we have Mike Prendergast, who I know has been practicing the pledge all week.
Right. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mike. Not bad. Glad you practiced so much. Like we were talking about before, this is just so everybody we're all on the same page with the next couple weeks. Next week, there will be no meeting because of Memorial Day. Then we have 2 weeks in a row at Timuquana. So make sure you double check the calendar and RSVP. And then we have the June 30th is the President's Party. So make sure you take a look at the DAC-DB for that. Anytime there's an event, a meeting, you can RSVP right through DAC-DB to acknowledge your attendance. And if you're planning to bring a guest, that's helpful for us for planning at the for meals. I can't see if Carter's on the call. I don't think he is. I wanted to thank him for organizing the river and road cleanup. He sent some cute pictures, which I'm hoping we can get up onto Facebook. We had a couple of members of the Riverside Club join us as well. And then as we were also talking about before, the social committee is working on a party for us at Manifest Distilling. It's going to be on June 15th from 5:30 to 7. And we'll have some food catered in, and then we'll be able to have the tour of the distillery and a little bit deeper discussion from Jim. Lee's on with us. How you doing, Lee? We're all thinking about you. You're muted, girl.
Thank you. I appreciate all the nice calls and cards. It's been a tough week. Monday, it really hit me after the initial shock of everything.
Yeah.
It's good to see you.
Yeah,
Thanks for being here today.
Well, thank you for.
Do you want me to do the family Rotary now, or is that in a minute?
Sure. Go for it.
Okay.
Thank you.
We've got some birthdays coming up. We got Tim Johnson on May the 26th, and William Milney is going to be turning the big 4-0 on June 1st. Dan Maloney is June the 4th. Sean Corrigan Asmuth is on the 6th. Mark Eldridge is on the 7th, and Davis Collier is on the 10th. So happy birthday to everyone, and also happy Memorial Day coming up. Does anyone else have a family of Rotary announcement to make today? Okay, I guess that's it, Mary Pat.
Thank you, Lee. Nobody has good news to share from the floor. All right. I don't think we have any visitors, so Dane, you're off the hook. And we are cruising right into our program. Ike, if you'll make the intros, please.
Yeah, this is one of my favorite meetings, how I got where I am. Some Rotary clubs call it a craft talk. Some call it a qualification talk. But what we like to do is we have new members or newer members share kind of their story. And Joe Springer is going to lead off. Joe was a member when I joined the club at the old Holiday Inn Fried Chicken Buffet, and he took a job and moved away from us. And I guess the week he moved back, he rejoined Rotary, rejoined us at Westjax Rotary. So one of my favorite people in Rotary. Joe Springer, take it away.
Thank you, Ike. I guess he's pretty much said everything that I was going to say. So let's go ahead and move on to the next person. It might save a lot more time. Now, seriously, thank you for having me back, first of all. And when I was asked to do this, it made me start thinking. And it made me think about all the people you seem to remember in your life through, no matter what, they're always there. Maybe it was your first boss, good or bad, you probably remember them. Or maybe it was a favorite teacher, the one that really sparked that interest in you to make you start learning. Or the one that I know I won't forget is the person who introduced me to Rotary. That's Larry Gill. That was back in March 15th of 1995. That meeting over at the Holiday Inn, Ward Matthews, Vince Coyle, and myself all joined the club. At that time, classifications were a lot broader than what they are now. My classification when I started was computer, hardware, software, supplies, sales, and service. I pretty much had the whole thing locked up right there, so I was doing good with it. But it's kind of funny the way that things seem to go around in a circle. I was born in Jacksonville, over at the Navy Hospital, NAS Jax, and I seem to remember another one of those things from my childhood was in the 3rd grade. Our class actually went to Mayport, the other Navy base, and took a tour of the USS Saratoga CV-60. I never will forget that. And by the 5th grade, we had moved down to Titusville. This was right across from Cape, at that time, Canaveral, Cape Kennedy, now back to Cape Canaveral, and I'm not sure what else. But it was just getting started. My stepfather was in a land development company called Ball Builders. And at that time, dredging was looked at as a way of creating usable property. So if you've ever been down to Merritt Island, visited Diana Shores or the Merritt Island Mall, you are standing on a lot of the dirt that he brought in from the river to make those places. I graduated high school in Titusville, along with 800 of my other friends. I get a kick out of it whenever I hear people say that they graduated with a class of 15 or class of 20. I really don't know what that would be like. We had 800 in ours. And after getting out of the Navy on my where I am, I mean, after school, I joined the Navy for 3 things. I wanted to get world travel, I wanted electronics training, and I wanted my GI Bill. Through boot camp and following up with that travel, I went ahead and requested that I go to Hawaii, Key West, or California. All of them great military towns, all of them great bases. And when the orders came back, I was quite surprised to find out that I was going to go with VS-22 at Cecil Field, right back in Jacksonville. So I joined to see the world and got to see my own backyard. But the Navy was good for me. I did find out not only was Cecil Field part of it, that when the squadron deployed, when we had to go out with the aircraft carriers and go do our jobs, we deployed on, yep, you guessed it, the USS Saratoga, the same boat that I'd been on my 3rd grade field trip. So it was just a small world. My rating in the Navy was AX. I was an aviation anti-submarine warfare technician. And when we were deployed, I'm happy to say of the 6,600 people on the Saratoga, I was one of the 3 people that did my job. Consequently, nobody really knew what I did. So we played it for whatever we could. We insisted that our workspace had to be 67 degrees to keep all the computers working, and they complied. They let us do that. We made them sure that they understood that the machine had to be down at least 4 hours a day to let it cool off even in those conditions. They let us shut it down, and that's when we just kind of go off visiting around the boat, going and seeing our friends. But I did get the electronics training. My job basically was the plane's flying. It has a problem. The pilot lands and he says, I've got a problem with the XYZ system. One of the guys in the squadron would come out and change that box. The pilot's happy. That box would then go to one shop. They would say, okay, it's this circuit board is causing the problem. They put a new one in, put it back in supply, and that circuit board came to me, where I was qualified to work on the ANUSM 403 Hybrid Automatic Test Station, the HAT station. Pretty fancy, other than the fact of knowing that it identified what component was bad logically, and then also created a work order to have those components fixed. Again, I'm not quite sure how planes stay up in the air, but they weren't able to do it unless we did our job. It was interesting on a side note. We had one of the 3 guys that was doing this job was a bit of a comedian. So every time a report came in for a failed item, we had to write up what we thought the problem actually was. He had two responses that he would use. His most common was a short between the pilot's headset caused the problem. And the second one was he would always write it up as an ID10T problem, an error. And if you write out an ID10T, it comes up and spells idiot. So he got away with it. I didn't try because I knew it wasn't going to work for me. So about Joe Springer, I'm married, been married for 41 years to my bride, Sue. I have a son in Memphis, a son in Houston, and a daughter still here in Jacksonville, and 4 grandchildren. My wife was born in Jacksonville, stayed in Jacksonville, went to school in Jacksonville, and has lived her entire life. And she just recently retired from Richmond American Homes in October. So after the Navy, you have to understand at that time, the Navy was 10 to 15 years ahead of the rest of the world when it came to the electronics and the things that they were doing. They were thinking up movies that I knew really did exist. Spy cameras that could go down to a license plate. We knew it could do this. Being able to find a little bitty tiny submarine in an ocean, we were able to do things like that. But also remember at that time, there weren't PCs. There wasn't an internet. There wasn't a fax machine. I mean, I'm an old dude. This stuff is really out of the world. That when I came back and I would tell people what I did, most of the potential employers didn't believe me. First of all, no, there's no way you fix the machine that fixed the board, that fixed the blah, get right down the line. So I ended up going into office electronics and did that for a few years until I decided, you know what, I could just do this on my own. So how I got where I am and got with Rotary was I went ahead and started my own company, Interconnect Computers, and was very successful. For about 18 years, we were able to keep the doors open until finally the electronics got a little ahead of what I wanted to keep pace with. Little side note, part of that career at the Interconnect Computer, yes, your fellow Rotarian, Joe Springer, actually installed the first 8287 math coprocessor chip in an IBM computer that turned it into an IBM PC XT, a little chip plugged into a spot that was already there. And you would have thought that I was doing surgery. They had me strapped down in every which direction, grounding it all out. But anyhow, it was fun doing what we were doing. And that's how I met Larry Gill. His company needed to have some repair work done on their computers. He called me in and I was able to do it. I think if you look around what I knew to be the membership, I've probably done work for a lot of you folks, and you still let me come back into Rotary. So I guess I must have done something right. I'm happy for that. But I stayed with the PCs, slowly worked up the technology part of it until I was working with National PET Scan, which is the positron emission tomography people. And it was my job to go out and set up all the offices that they had and make sure that they were communicating with each other. So it was my title. They asked me on the business card what my title should be. They wanted VP technical. And I said, I'd rather have the manager of information systems, field integration technologies. Well, they thought that was pretty impressive until the boss wrote down the initials and realized it's spelled misfit. So she wouldn't let me keep that particular title. But at that job, it was my job to go out and get these offices set up, create a huge VPN that linked up 7 sites, all the computers, all of the operators, the doctors who were reading, the remote dictation units, the people who were typing, the management, the technicians, everyone. And the biggest challenge was doing a line of sight transmission across Tampa Bay from one location to the other. And you know, when they hold the bottle up and they on the shows, you can see the pink line. That's true. A radar wave shows up a light color of pink whenever it's hitting the target, if you can see it. But I knew as long as PetScan was growing, I had a job. And of course, as soon as I said that, they stopped growing. They stopped at 7 offices. So they no longer needed me for doing what we were doing. We were able to, I brought in somebody else that cost a whole lot less money for him just to be a computer guy. But it was time to make a change. So some of you remember, or you know now about fundraising in schools, where the kids come home with the brochures and you pick stuff out and everything. You pay a whole lot of money for stuff that really isn't worth half the price of what they sold it at. Or maybe you remember world famous, what was it, a chocolate company that they were doing there. I ended up getting a job from a local company with a local company. And actually my wife was working there at the time to work as their computer person, but then also ended up going into sales and sales management. The idea behind that company, my part being there, was to help them determine whether or not they should stay in business, or was the market catching up to such a degree that it was actually time for them to stop and look somewhere else. Well, with the Walmarts coming in with the same inexpensive merchandise, with all the security risks that you had involved now, kids not being able to actually go door to door and knock. Can you imagine sending your children out unaccompanied now, knocking on strangers' doors and asking them for money? No, it's not going to happen. So anyhow, I lost that job too. They closed down. They decided it was time to shut the door. So once again, I'm out looking for work. The owner of that company was very good to me. It was a father and son team. And when it came time to leave, he said, I've got a plan for you. And he introduced me to another father and son team. He knew a company I didn't know at the time, but it was Lamb's Yacht Center. I think I'd seen that once or twice when I went over the bridge. You know, I could see this big place down there. I really didn't know what they were doing, but he ended up introducing me to him. And the owner, the father, says, okay, I've got 2 questions. Do you know any of our customers? No, sir, I can't say that I do, or if I do, I don't know I know them. He said, my second question is, what do you know about yachts? I said, I know they're big, they're white, and they're expensive. That was the limit of my knowledge there. He said, perfect. If you can handle the inside, we'll handle the outside. We have a lot of small problems. We just need someone to come in that can step back from it and see the problem and fix them. So that's what I did. It took about 6 years. We ended up getting very profitable. And about the time we were getting profitable, they realized I was the most expensive thing that they had there. So yeah, you know how that goes. I was looking for a job again, but it worked out well. I ended up getting a job with WestJax Marinas, which is what took me away from the club and working up in Fernandina. They got the contract from the city of Fernandina to manage the municipal marina, the one that's downtown. When we got there in 2010, they were averaging 2,400 boat nights a year, 2,400 a year. When we left, or when we got up to speed, we were doing 14,000 a year, which is 50 boats a night coming and going through that marina every day of the week, sometimes more, sometimes less, but a lot of them were going on. In addition to that, because of the management part of it, they let me work with the different folks who had money available. So while we were there, we also took in over $2 million worth of grants that we got for the city, and the city turned around and used in the marina itself. All of that's going well until 2006. Hurricane Matthew, oh goodness, hit Fernandina directly. There was over, at first estimate, there was over $30 million worth of damage done to Fernandina. And of the $30 million, 22 million of it was at the marina. So, I mean, the marina just took a direct hit, shut the marina down, closed everything down, and we stayed that way until 2010, partially open, but actually open for business in 2010 when we came around to it. So that took me away. If any of you remember, we were right in the middle of a Rotary clay shoot fundraiser out at the field. Scott Hauser and I were setting it up. Scott, you got everything ready? We're ready to roll. As soon as that was said, I left. I went to Fernandina to go to work that day and honestly didn't come back for 10.5 years. Someone said, had a couple of people say, well, why don't you just get active up in Fernandina? I tried it. It didn't work. It wasn't going to be fair to all concerned as one of our rules, because I drove to Fernandina every day an hour and I drove back an hour. So every day I was in Fernandina, I couldn't do anything with West Jax. I was in Fernandina all day long. I could not make it to meetings. I couldn't come to a lot of the stuff that was going on. And when it came to the Fernandina clubs, it was just the opposite. I'd be there every week for the meetings, but come the weekend, come the evening activities, I wouldn't be available for those because, to be quite truthful, I'd rather be home than up in Fernandina. So I just didn't have the time for it. I like side notes. This is one I told Ike, and he said I should bring it up just as a reference to that travel. I drove 100 miles a day, 5 days a week. That's 500 miles a week. 500 miles a week for 52 weeks is 26,000 miles a year. That's nice. Take that times 10.5 years, and that's 273,000 miles I drove while I worked in Fernandina. And last night, for any of you who are out looking at it, the moon was 222,000 miles away from us. So if I had started driving that same day heading to the moon, I could have already been there and could have been part of the way back by now. So Rotary, me and Rotary, 14 years perfect attendance, and I'm very proud of that. Been through a lot of the presidents and been through a lot of folks, but all of them have been good to me, and hopefully some of them think I've been good to them. Multiple Paul Harris Fellow, including one of them that I received when I received the J.J. McCraney Award a few years back. I've held almost every office or been on every committee in the club except for the treasurer and the president's position. I think we just best leave those for the young people. I did retire from WestJax in December of 2020, and I contacted Ike, like he said. I knew I was coming home, and I just wanted to see if there was any opening, if there was any position, or just what was going on with the club. When I talked to Ike, it made me start thinking that old memories, those things you remember some people and you remember some things. I'm just curious how many people, and just smile if you know what I'm talking about, remembered when Dave Collier became president and we all wore our little yellow cardboard bow ties at his first meeting. He looked around that room for minutes before he realized what we were doing. I remember we were doing a Tilly Fowler work project. We were going out there to repair one of the stands, and I'll never forget Frank Shy in his Porsche driving around with a wheelbarrow sticking out of it. That's just something you don't see every day. I remember the Rotary Boatery was the precursor to the cleanup projects that we're doing. And as mentioned, the fried chicken over at the Holiday Inn. I don't know how many people remember Lou Brantley's farm when we went up there to visit that 100-acre wood. What a great place that was. And a question, did anyone ever see Fran get mad? I mean, think about it. All the years she worked with this club, I never once saw that lady lose her temper. Now, I don't know what she did after we all left. I mean, she may have been a screaming Mimi for all we know. How many of you remember Damon Loop and the jokes that he told, including the one where there was a reporter present, and that was a situation all in itself? Edgar Martin, he did a talk to us one day that was Cal Ford to Oxford. Great guy, great man. And then our career days at the schools, how we went from having students that didn't even want us to be there to students who just sucked every bit of information out of us. Well, in summary, that was then, this is now. The one thing that I missed most being up in Fernandina and Rotary was I'm not able to fix every problem in the world. I'd like to think that in my own way, I may have helped somebody somewhere with some small problem. But I know the whole time I was with Rotary, and I've been with Rotary, it seems like my little bit, along with your little bit and your little bit and his and her little bit and the other clubs, we've solved problems with Rotary that people didn't even think we could do, much less did we do it and did we complete it. So it's something that I'm proud to be back with again. I look forward to catching up with some of you old guys, some of the members that were around here. And when I say old guys, do remember at the time that I was active, Mike Corrigan was the youngest man, that's the son, was the youngest member in our Rotary Club. He was the baby. That's when we started deciding it was time to go with a few younger folks in there. But I look forward to getting back with the old members that I know, meeting some of the new ones that have come in, and hope to hear some more stories from everyone. And I appreciate your time. If I've taken too long, I apologize. but it's just fun to sit here and look out at everyone that's there. And back to you, Mr. President-elect.
Thank you, Joe. Really well done. Thank you very much. Drove to the moon and back. Awesome. We are so fortunate and so lucky to have you back in our club. So
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Looking forward to the next 20 years.
Yeah.
Doug Benefield up next.
That's me.
Tough fight to follow, Doug, but I know you're up to.
It was very good, Joe. That was entertaining. That was great. I think we'll, at the end of my presentation, we'll all agree that Jacksonville is a military town, and it's amazing how all of us end up here. I'm going to do my best to present. You guys will let me know if you can see the actual presentation. Everybody sees full screen?
Yeah, it looks good,
Yeah.
Doug.
Okay, how I got where I'm at. The at is not necessary because we've already said where. So that's grammatically incorrect, but we'll let it slide. I'm Tommy Douglas Benefield III. I was born and raised in Orange Park. I was also born at NAS Jax, like Joe. When I say Orange Park, people say, "Oh, Blanding," and I think, no. The actual town of Orange Park, 8,000 residents, currently nestled between Doctors Lake and the St. Johns River. I found this map online. It looks like it's 3,500 acres. So these black dots, this is Plainfield Avenue, 17 Park Avenue for Orange Park people. Between Kingsley and Wells, the dot in the middle is my house. The dot to the right is my sister-in-law. To the left is my in-laws. Down a little bit is my aunt, and a little bit further is my mom. We all live within about a quarter-mile radius. So I'll probably never get a chance to leave Orange Park, but I enjoy it. I grew up in the old Huntley house. You guys remember Jiffy Huntley, Jiffy Convenience Store, Jiffy Lube, and Jiffy Feet. And then the house was actually built in 1881. It was one of the first houses in Orange Park. And I don't think it's haunted. We never saw any evidence of ghosts or goblins. This house is 3 houses away from the house I live in currently. So I haven't gone very far. My dad is on the right. He's Tommy Douglas Benefield Jr. He was a Navy pilot at Cecil, flew A-7s, F-18s, and then moved to Air Tran. Everybody remembers Air Tran probably from the crash in the Everglades. And then my dad moved to Southwest and recently took a pretty sweet early retirement package thanks to COVID. My mom, Sandra Gray, has been a court reporter in Jacksonville her whole life. She always brought home great stories of depositions she's taking. The yacht builder didn't seal the outside correctly, and now this $30 million yacht sank. This is a picture of my mom's dad, so my maternal grandfather. We grew up driving back and forth to South Carolina, hunting. My maternal grandfather and grandmother are from Tupelo, Mississippi. There's a story that Elvis was seen around those parts. My grandfather married his high school sweetheart, and they would actually take their tractor down to get like a movie and a hamburger for a nickel. My grandfather was an Air Force veteran. And then after the Air Force, he got hooked up with Hevner Realty and then founded his own real estate office in the town of Orange Park, 904 Park Avenue. That was 1975. When 2008, 2009 recession came through, he decided he was probably tired of trying to sell houses. So he sold out and basically only sells houses now if he knows you really well or your family. This is my dad's dad. So the original Tommy Douglas Benefield, he went by Doug Benefield like I do. Air Force test pilot. He had 11,000 flight hours and then eventually moved to Rockwell International. He set a speed record from New York to Paris in the Concorde when the Concorde first came out. And then he was the chief test pilot for the B-1 that crashed in September of 1984. Well, I was born April of 85. He passed away September of 84, 8 months apart. They were actually doing a ABC Good Morning segment on him when the plane crashed. So they rushed it that morning to the floor of the Good Morning News. And then what we're going to do is try and watch this video. I think it's pretty cool. Hopefully you guys do too. It's about 4.5 minutes, but it's got some cool stuff in it. You guys can see this okay? Full screen's good.
Looks good now.
David Hartman of Good Morning America spent some time in California with the crew of a B-1 bomber. It was to be a profile of both the controversial plane and the men who fly it. In a tragic coincidence, the pilot with whom Hartman flew a month ago is the man who was killed yesterday in that B-1 crash. What began as a profile then is now a tribute.
August 2nd, 1984, Edwards Air Force Base, the B-1 bomber, over 200 tons of power and electronics waiting quietly in the heat, ready as we got ready.
Maybe about 200 feet off the ground at that point.
Pre-flight briefing, they sat me down by the crew. Lieutenant Colonel Leroy Schroeder, Air Force test pilot, Captain Otto Wanacek, engineer, and a civilian, test pilot Doug Benefield. They told me this guy was the old pro, he'd done it all. I even kidded him about it.
Listen, when I look at how young you guys are, and then I look at Benefield, I'm glad I'm with him because I know he's got more experience.
Now it's down to business, the weather briefing and the mission briefing. One test, we would drop 5 bombs.
Okay, if we do, we can press on and try to get off at 10:30.
This guy Benefield really was special. I couldn't stop watching him. He told me he'd flown over 120 different airplanes. He'd lost count, 34 years of flying, combat in Vietnam, test pilot for the Concorde, and for the last 10 years, Rockwell's chief test pilot for the B-1. He was exactly what I've thought for years a test pilot would be like. Great, dry sense of humor, but no nonsense when it came to airplanes. We're up. For Schroeder, Benefield, and Wanacek, it's another workday. Create a problem for the plane and see what happens. Simulate an emergency and hope you don't have one. Kill one engine, see how it flies. Now kill 2. Speed, yaw, pitch. Okay, that works.
0, come left, heading 059er.
My dad taught me, watch people who are good at what they do. Watch Benefield. Watch his hands. Strong, knowing, quick, controlled, gentle. Nothing tentative in these hands. They've been here before.
5, 4.
Now it's time to drop the bombs. 5 dummies. They've done it before, but this time there's trouble.
You only got 2 away. 2 away, 2 away. Now hang loose just a minute. Stay stand by. Stay clear and let's slow down a bit.
That was Benefield. Slow down, stay loose, no nonsense. Now, time to go home. One last pass over Edwards at 200 feet, 600 miles per hour. It's loud in the cockpit. I wonder what we sound like from the ground. We've read books and seen countless movies about these test pilots and engineers. They're heroes to me, special. They seem almost immortal, flying planes that may not work, flying them in a way they're not supposed to fly, knowing the machine they love could kill them.
You're learning how to fly fast, aren't you?
Are you a pro? Are you a pro? I'll tell you.
In his book, The Right Stuff, Tom Wolfe describes the job of the test pilot. The idea seems to be that a man should have the ability to go up in a hurtling piece of machinery and put his hide on the line and then have the moxie, the reflexes, the experience, the coolness to pull it back in the last yawning moment, and then go up again the next day, and the next day, and every next day.
That's our report on World News Tonight. For all of us here at ABC News, I'm...
So I never met him, but I've got that video, and every time I watch it, it seems crazy. Let's see, we'll get back into this. So that's grandfather number 2. I went to St. John's Country Day School in Orange Park, class of 2003. Unlike the school in Titusville, I had 32 people in my senior class. I met my wife in the 7th grade. I was accepted at the University of Florida as a junior. I went early decision. But I only passed one class the first year. So my parents decided that, that they weren't going to send money down there anymore if I wasn't going to go to class. So I came back and got a job working for the family construction company, learned how to paint, trim work, did a little bit of stucco. Then I moved to another company called Sun State Systems. We built industrial control panels for water pumps. High voltage 3-phase comes in, transformers down to 24 volt. We're talking relays and circuits. I got a raise every year for 4 years, and then I didn't. So I figured, you know what, it's probably time to go back to school and finish that degree. I enrolled at UNF. I did 90 hours in 5 semesters straight through. So accounting major and finance minor. Had 135 hours. You need 150 for the CPA license. I got an internship with the LBA group. That's Al Lafai and Richard Brock. I'd go in the office about 5:30 in the morning to study. And Al Lafai, some of you guys probably know him. He'd be in there in an undershirt talking on the phone. It's 5:30 in the morning. It's bad enough that we're in the office, but who the hell is he talking to? Al recently passed away, but he was always interesting to see early in the mornings. CPA license took about 15 months. I passed 2 of them the first try, and 2 of them it took me twice, 2 tries. At the LBA group, I spent 3 years in the assurance department, so corporate audits, mostly for bank debt, nonprofit audits if you have federal funding, and then employee benefit plans to make sure everybody gets their profit sharing. But clients don't really like audits. They don't like the word. They don't like paying for them. And I thought that when I got into accounting, I'd be able to help my clients. So I moved to the tax department. But I feel like I can advocate for the client a little bit better. And yes, it's expensive sometimes, but I can always show the client, hey, this is how much I saved you in taxes and you're keeping in your pocket. I did win the MVP award in 2018, very prestigious. My wife and I just had our 10-year anniversary, Carrie Cawthon. I met her when I was in 7th grade and she was in 8th, and we dated off and on. We did not date the entire way through. I just want to make that clear. This is Douglas. He is Tommy Douglas Benefield IV. We adopted from St. Augustine, a local Catholic charity, and his genetic grandfather is one of my top clients still to this day. Douglas is 4.5. During coronavirus, I ended up getting my wife pregnant, and Edwin James was supposed to come after this May 17th tax deadline. He came 5 weeks early. He was supposed to be, his scheduled arrival date was yesterday. So he's down here at the beach house with us now, and we're happy to have him. This is my house currently. There's 3 houses from the Huntley house. I have 1.7 acres right in the middle of Orange Park. So when we bought this house, I was going to have to cut this grass. So I started a little landscape company. My stepbrother runs it, and I went out and bought a tractor because, I really needed a tractor. SA merged in the old LBA group. We went from 100 employees to 6,000 overnight. And I decided it was time to move on before they made me sign a non-compete. I spent last year with a partner in tax and accounting, estate planning firm, and really figured out that partnerships are a lot like marriages. And if you don't really enjoy spending time with that person, it's not going to work out. So I left him in December, started a new firm, Elevated CPA. We have a major focus on small business because I've got the audit and the tax experience. I can really go from financial statements to the tax return. Most of what I provide is a monthly retainer where if you need me, you call me and I look at your books and I say, hey, it looks like salaries and wages is a little bit high compared to the industry. Can we cut somebody? Can we save money? Small businesses, revenue up to about 20 million. And most of these small businesses, they have an accountant or a bookkeeper. It could be the wife, the sister-in-law. They probably need a CFO, but they don't need to pay one to sit in the office all year long. So we aim to be that trusted advisor that helps get the business owner comfortable with the financial statements where they can make better managerial decisions. Big firm capabilities, small firm reliability, large enough to meet all your needs and to know your name. That's who we want to be. It's been really fun kind of building this from the ground up because I can define the direction of where this CPA firm goes. That's where we are. I joined Rotary at a suggestion from one of my managers a couple of years ago, and it's been great. Thank you, guys.
Well done, Doug. Thank you very much. 2 excellent presentations today. Ms. President, turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Ike, and thanks, gentlemen, for your presentations today. Both very fascinating, and I'm also very familiar, Doug, with the area that you grew up, because that's where I grew up too. Not too far down Dr. Slate Drive from where you live, when the days when Moody Road was a dirt road. long time ago.
Yeah, my grandfather tells stories about how I guess Kingsley and Wells were dirt at one point, which just blows my mind.
Yeah, it was a sleepy little town. I think the closest grocery store was the Winn-Dixie at Timquana.
Yeah,
that's where they used to go.
And my mom went to Orange Park High, and she tells a story that there were 2 police officers in Orange Park. So if you saw one of them, you were fairly safe to do what you wanted to do.
And I remember as a kid, there was a farm across the street from Orange Park High School, and they had Brahma bulls on that property. And that was always a highlight for us kids to see those, although I was never involved in cow tipping. I heard a few stories about that, but both great presentations today, and thank you so much for doing those. It really is a highlight for the club. It gives you a chance to get to know people a little bit better, and you never know what you might find in common. So thank you for taking the time to prepare those presentations today. I wanted to thank Joe Eberly for going out to West Riverside Elementary today. That was today, right, Joe?
Yes.
Yeah. They delivered lunches to the teachers at West Riverside, and we're going to do it again on Friday at 11:30 at Lee High School. We do have a caterer, Noni, that is preparing the food, but if you're available on Friday at 11:30 to help unload and get the lunches into the school, we really need the help. So thank you.
Where are we supposed to meet Friday? It's like in the front, or?
She didn't exactly say. Joe, did you meet at the school office today?
No, we, at this point, at least at West Riverside, you're not actually, no one's allowed inside the door. So we met at the
we met at the front door of the school, and the principal and vice principal came out and took the food from us. And so I assume that must be standard at all the schools. So
Okay. All right. Thank you for doing that today. So you did feel like they needed help though, right?
well, when I got there a little early, and so I saw a guy in a SUV come up, and so I walked over to him, and he said, I'm supposed to meet some people here from Rotary to help deliver this food, and I was the only one there. So, and that's, it's a fairly small school, so it wasn't that big of a job. But I think going to Lee, if there's just one person there, I think you need a couple people to show up.
Okay. Thank you for that, Joe. So if you're available on Friday at 11:30, and I'll circle back with Patty and Noni too to find out exactly what the plan is. But I'll plan to be there on Friday.
So here's Al Yates. I'm on thing, and Al's the guy that thanked me before.
I think that was Dan unmuting himself by accident. Anyway, thank you for doing that today, Joe. As a reminder, there's no lunch meeting next week due to Memorial Day. We will be in person at Timuquana on June 9th, and our speaker is Mark Van Loo from, he's the CEO of JAA. And Joe, if you will please lead us in the 4-way test.
First, is it the truth? Second, is it fair to all concerned? Third, is it beneficial to all? And fourth, wait a minute.
You confused me.
I confused myself. Will it be beneficial to all concerned?
Thank you. Thank you, Joe. Thanks everybody for being with us today. Have a wonderful Memorial Day weekend, and we'll see you on the 9th.
Have a good holiday, everybody. Okay.